In this video, we're going to be explaining how to use async await in JavaScript. So let's start off with defining three functions. Let's call this one do task one that returns a promise. It's a new promise. It takes resolve and reject, and let's choose the set timeout function. So we're going to resolve right after 3000 milliseconds, and let's pass the string as a variable. It's an argument, sorry. So what this function does is returns a promise, and that promise is gonna be resolved right after 3 seconds, and this string over here, it's gonna be passed as an argument to this resolve function. All right, so this is the first function. Let's make another two. So do task 2 and then do task 3. We change them. Alright, so this one is going to only take 2 seconds. This one only 1 second. So let's say I wanted to console log the result of this promise. So we could just call the promise, right? The function, sorry. And as you may know, guys, with promises, we could chain these methods. So we have access to the then and catch and finally. If you want to know more about these methods, guys, I have a video explaining everything about promises and how they work. So let's use the then method. As you may know, guys, the then method only gets called once the promise has been resolved. So we get access to this resolve variable. You could call it whatever you want. You could call it result, data, anything you want. It's up to you. The then method gets access to this function that takes a variable as an argument, and you could call it whatever you want. In this case, I just called it result, and I'm just gonna console log that result. Okay, let's see what's gonna happen here. As you can see, guys, we managed to console log the result of this function or promise. So what we're gonna do is I wanna console log the result of this function, and then this one, and then this one. So I'm just gonna change this one to do task 1, this one do task 2, and then do task 3. So you may want to pause the video and see if you could predict the result that's gonna be console logged in the console, right? And see if it matches what's gonna be in there. So pause the video and see if you're able to figure it out. All right, so let's go ahead, let's save the file, see what's gonna happen. So do task 3, do task 2, do task 1. So what happened? Didn't we call the do task 1 first and only then we called the second and the third? What happened? Why is the order reversed? Why? So as you may know, guys, a promise is asynchronous. So it doesn't wait, which means it doesn't wait for itself to finish to move to the next line. As you may see here, guys, this in here is the asynchronous. So it doesn't wait for itself to be whether rejected or fulfilled to move to the next line. It doesn't wait, right? That's why, as you can see, guys, so this do task 1, it takes 3 seconds. This one takes 2 seconds, and this one takes only 1 second. So what ends up happening is, because this one takes 3 seconds, and this one 2, and this one 1, the one with the least amount of seconds is gonna be resolved first. So in our case, do task 3 is gonna be resolved before these two, and then because this one has less amount of seconds than this one, it's gonna be resolved before it. That's why you see do task 3 and then do task 2 and then do task 1. That's the reason behind it. All right, but luckily we could solve this problem with a little trick. I'll show you guys. So it's coming out this kind of code, and let's see. So we're gonna call do task one, right? And we're gonna use the then method, and as many of us, we get access to the result. I'm just gonna call it result one, and in here I'm gonna console log result one, and then I'm gonna call do task two within the callback, right? So I'm gonna do it, do task two, and then result. I'm gonna call it result two. You could call it whatever you want. I'm gonna console log it, right? And in here, I'm gonna call do task three. I'm gonna use then result three. I'm gonna console log it. So as you may see, guys, this is going to work, and I'll tell you why. So do task one, and then followed by the second task, and then the third. Why it worked? So basically, guys, we awaited for this promise to be resolved, and we console logged it, and only then we called the do task two function that's gonna return a promise, and then we are going to await for it. So this code is going to be executed only if the promise was resolved. As you can see, guys, it was resolved because in here we didn't pass reject, we passed resolve, and it was resolved, and we console logged the result, and then we called the do task 3 and console logged the result of that function. So this is how you go about if you want to like have an order, and you wanted to like, if you had like say 3 or 4 promises, and you wanted to like execute the second promise before, like, or like you wanted to execute the second promise only if the first one has been resolved. This is how you go about it. But there is a way better way to do this. So let me come out this thing. So using async await. Alright, so let's declare a variable called resolve, and in here we are going to call the to task one, right? But we're not gonna use then, right? We're gonna use something called await. And then we're gonna console log resolve. So what this one does, it awaits for the promise to be resolved, and that value is assigned to this variable called result, and in here we just console log it. So let's save the file and see what's gonna happen. As you may see, guys, we have an error because this error means that await could only be used inside of an async function. So we cannot use the await outside of an async function. So let me declare a function. Let me call it async function do tasks. For example, let me put this within it. Right? If I save the file, nothing's gonna happen because I haven't called do tasks. Right? So let me call it do tasks. Let me save the file. Let's see what's gonna happen. So after 3 seconds, it's gonna console log the result. And as you may see, guys, it might seem like nothing have changed, right? But let me show you. So result, let's say 2, await do task 2, then console log result 2. So let's see what's gonna happen. Do task number 1 and then do task number 2. So even though task 1 takes less amount of seconds than the first task, it wasn't executed before it. For this one, it wasn't. And why is that? Because in our code, we are telling JavaScript to await for this promise to be resolved, and only then move to the code above. So that's what happened. So we awaited for this one to be resolved, console logged it, and we moved to this next line, which we awaited also for the do task 2 to be resolved, and we console logged it. That's how you go. So to avoid this method over here, which is gonna be, it's fine, but like, let's say if you had like multiple promises that you've been working on, right? It's gonna be an issue because you're gonna have a lot of logic, and it's just confusing. So it's way better to use this one over here over this one. So let me come out this one. let's continue. So now I'm going to store the result. This one, and we're just going to console log it. And as you will see, guys, the order is going to stay the same. So the first one, only then execute the second, only then go to the third. That's how it works. But there is a small thing we haven't covered yet, which is how do we catch errors. So let's use try catch, right? Say error. Let's console log. Something went wrong. All right. So as you will see, guys, because we have no we haven't rejected any of the promises that we have, there is no errors going to be console log. But let's say do task 2. Okay, so this one, instead of resolve, I want to reject. So let's see what's going to happen. Oh, see, guys? Okay, let me explain what happens. So we are trying to execute this code, but if there was an error or any promise has been rejected, it's gonna jump straight to this catch block and it would execute the code within this block. So what happens is we awaited for this promise to be resolved, right? And there was no error. We didn't reject, right? We didn't throw an error, so it resolved successfully. We console logged the result, as you can see in here. And then we moved to this line of code. We awaited this promise to be resolved, but it didn't actually resolve, it rejects, right? So it rejected the promise. So what happened there, when it rejected the promise, right, it jumps, like these lines of code, they won't be executed. It jumps right here and executes the code within the catch block. That's what happens. So when we reject, or when like an error has been thrown from some of these promises, in our case we rejected. So if this promise rejects, these lines of code won't be executed. It would jump straight from here to the catch block and execute the code within this block. All right. Let me do something else. So instead of, let's resolve this one and let's reject the first promise to see what's going to happen. See, because this one was rejected, it didn't execute any of the code below it. It jumped straight to this catch block and executed the code within this block. So that's it about async await. Just remember, you can't use await outside of an async function. It's gonna throw an error. And yeah, that's it pretty much. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to like the video and drop a comment. If you have any questions, just leave them there. And yeah, hope you have a good guys.